students, welcome to the science class. In last session you studied that you already know that the fundamental unit of the life, it is nothing but the cell, isn't it? For example, I am taking a microorganism. All the activities of the living organisms, is it maybe a plant or is it maybe an animal, like the digestion, isn't it? The digestion, excretion, all the living processes are going to be worked within the cells, isn't it? Therefore we are going to call it as the cell is the fundamental unit of the life. For example, amoeba, a microorganism, it has only one cell, so all the living activities are going to be done with the help of a unicell, that is a one cell, isn't it? The excretion, nutrition, all the living processes are going to be held with the help of only one cell in the amoeba, because the amoeba has only one cell, it is a unicellular organism. But when we are going to think about the man, when we are going to think about the animals, for example, we have the different types of the organs here, isn't it? We have different types of the organs. We are not unicellular, we are multicellular, and as we know already, the parts of our body is made up of every part of our body is made up of the cells here. So in animals also and in plants also, all the activities are done within the cell only. So similar to the amoeba, every activity in the animals and in the plants are done in the cell only. But we have the specialized structures, but the amoeba will all the activities in the amoeba will be done with the only one cell. But when we are going to compare to the amoeba with the animal or amoeba with the human beings, we have the specialized structures, but these all specialized structures are made by the cells here. So for one example I am taking here, in the transportation system in the amoeba is done by the only one cell, but the transportation in our animal body or a plant body, it is done by the separate different cells. So some of the different cells in the animal body and or the plant body, they are going to do the definite work here. They only do the definite work and the structure of that cells are here same. For example, so in the human body or in the animal body, group of cells are going to be make a single work. The structure of that group of cell is similar and the function of that group of cells are similar, and that group of cells are going to be called as a tissues here. So that tissues which are present in our body, which are helpful to make the works here. For example, when you are going to breathe, your chest will be raised above, isn't it? So the chest will be somewhat expand. So how it is done? That is done by the tissues which are present in our chest, the tissues which are connected to the muscles which are present in our chest. That muscles moves our chest to the upward side, or it extends. So the tissues, the group of that, what is the tissues here? Tissues are nothing but the group of the similar cells having the same function. So what is meant by the tissues? So that will be studied in our another one new chapter, tissues. What are the types of the tissues? That is, what are the types of the tissues present in the plants? What are the types of the tissues present in the human beings or the animal tissues? So that will be studied in your chapter in today's session. First I am going to start with the tissues. So what is meant by the tissues? What are the tissues? Group of cells having a common origin and similar functions are termed as the tissues. The tissues are the group of the cells having common origin and similar functions. They perform the similar functions that are termed as a tissues. So these tissues having a group of cells. For example, I am taking one of the example I am taking here is blood. Blood, it is one of the transportation tissue here. It helps for the transportation. It is a liquid-like structure. It is one type of the animal tissue. But the cells of the blood are similar. They are made. See here, the group of the cells which are present in the In the blood, they are all similar, and the functions of the all tissue, all the cells which are present in a tissue. Blood, it is one of the example for the tissue here. It is the tissue which is helps for the transportation. But the cells which are present in the blood, because tissues contains number of cells, so blood contains number of cells, group of cells. All the cells have a similar function that carries the transportation, and also the structure and functions of their cells which are present in the blood tissue are similar. So the tissues are the group of the cells having a common origin and a similar functions are termed as a tissues here. So we are going to study tissues in two parts. One, it is a plant tissue, and the one is a animal tissue. But now we are going to study first the plant tissues. The plant tissues, on the basis of the dividing capacity, the plant tissues are classified into two types on the basis of their dividing capacity. For example, why we are going to consider here the dividing capacity? Because the body of the every human body or a living organism body, it will be developed due to the divide of the cell, isn't it? It grows with the help of the dividing of the cell. Therefore, on the basis of the dividing of the cells, for example, starting when we are going to consider a seed has some amount of the cells. When it starts to divide, it will be turned into a small plant. When that small plant will be formed, again the cells which are present in the plants are go on dividing, the plant will be developed into a big tree. Isn't it like that? Which now we are going to consider the capacity of a dividing capacity of the cells. We are going to classify the tissues into two types, that are meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Based on the capacity of the dividing or the dividing capacity of the tissues, we are going to classify the plant tissues into two types, that are meristematic tissues and permanent tissue. So the meristematic tissues again classified into apical tissues, intercalary tissues, lateral tissues. You have to remember here, the tissues are nothing but group of the cells present in the plant body. I am taking here plant tissues. Therefore, group of the cells present in the part of the plant body are the present in the plant, and they are performing their work. So we are going to study which tissues are present in which part of the plant and what is their work. That will be studied now. So these meristematic tissues are again classified into three types, that are apical tissues, intercalary meristematic tissues, lateral meristematic tissues. The types of the meristematic tissues are apical meristematic tissues, intercalary meristematic tissues, lateral meristematic tissues. So what are we now study what are apical meristematic tissues, intercalary meristematic tissues, and lateral meristematic tissues. First one, apical meristematic tissues. These are present in the growing tip of the stem. The apical meristematic tissues it is a group of cells which are present in the growing tip of the stem and the root. Growing tip of the root. If you are going to consider a plant, the growing tip is here. The tip is developed, a growing tip is here, and the growing tip of the root is here. Isn't it? In these both tips, the apical meristematic tissues are present. So these apical meristematic tissues are having a living cells here. You have to remember, the plant body has a living and a non-living. Dead cells are also present in the plants. Why? Because, for example, all the animals have the one character movement, but the plants doesn't has the one character, that is the movement. Why? Because it is due to the dead cells which are present in the plants. Isn't it? So what are that dead cells? I will tell after onwards. That will comes under the permanent tissues. The dead cells are present in the permanent tissues. But these apical meristematic tissues are the living tissues which are present at the growing tips of the plant, they are present here. This is the growing tip, and this is the growing tip of the root, isn't it? These apical meristematic tissues are present in the growing tip of the root and the growing tip of the plant. And what are the functions here? So as we know already, they are present at the growing tip. So the function is to increase the length of the stem and the root. The function of these apical meristematic tissues are to increase the length of the plant and to increase the length of the root here. These are the functions of the apical meristematic tissue. So in your examination, they are going to concentrate on what is apical meristematic tissues, where they are present, and what are their functions. These are the important questions that will be asked in your examination based on the tissues here. So you have to remember, you have to concentrate on what are the types of the tissues, where they are present in the plant body or animal body, what are their works, isn't it? So first, it is the first type of the meristematic tissue, that is apical meristematic tissue, that are present at the growing tip of the plant and the growing tip of the root, and the function is to increase the length of the plant and the length of the root here. And second type of the meristematic tissue, that is nothing but intercalary meristematic tissue. So these are present at the base leaves or internodes. The intercalary meristematic tissues are present at the base of the leaves or internodes. These are present at the base of the leaves. See here, the leaves are present here, the base of the leaves are present here. The base of the leaves are present here. They are present in here, the base of the leaves, and at the internodes. This is an internode. So this is an internode. So like that, they are present at the internode. That is second type here. Intercalary meristematic tissues are present at the base of the leaves. They are present at the base of the leaves, and also they are present at the internodes. This is also an internode. 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 So the intercalary meristematic tissues are present at the base of the leaves and at the internodes. And what are the functions here? They increases the longitudinal growth of the plant. So what is the function of these intercalary meristematic tissues? They increases the longitudinal growth of the plants. So the third type of the meristematic tissues, that are lateral meristematic tissues. These are present on the lateral sides of the stems and the roots. The lateral meristematic tissues are present at the lateral side of the stem and the root. They are present inside here, lateral, both the side, and in the roots here and here. So the lateral meristematic tissues are present on the lateral sides of the roots and the stem, lateral side of the root and the lateral side of the stem. And the function of the lateral meristematic tissue is to increase the thickness of the stem. They are present here. Therefore, the function of the lateral meristematic tissue to increase the thickness of the stem, to increase the thickness of the root. These are the functions of the lateral meristematic tissue. This is all about the under the plant tissue. That is one of the type of the plant tissue, that is meristematic tissue, and these are the types of the meristematic tissue. And now we are going to consider the second type of the plant tissues, that are permanent tissue. The permanent tissue. These permanent tissues are formed from the meristematic tissues. When a plant grows older and older, the meristematic tissues which are present in the plants, they are going to convert it into a permanent tissue. Why? Because the meristematic tissues are having the high capacity to divide. I already told that the meristematic tissues are the living tissues. They have the capacity to divide. But the permanent tissues, they have some of the dead tissues here. When the capacity of the meristematic cells, that is the cells which are present in the meristematic tissues, when the capacity of the dividing capacity of the cells which are present in the meristematic tissues will be decreases or loses the ability of the dividing. If the cells which are present in the meristematic tissues, when they loses the ability to divide the cells, then that cells are converted into permanent tissues. When the permanent tissues, so when the meristematic tissues which are present in the stems, when they grow older and older, at one end the cells which are present in the meristematic tissue which are present in the stem, they loses their ability to divide the cell, and at that time that cells are converted into permanent cells. So that's why the plants are not moving here. Why? Because they provides the permanent tissues which are present in the plants, they becomes dead here, therefore the plants doesn't have the movement. And these are formed for the meristematic tissues. The cells in the meristematic tissues lose the ability to divide, they convert it into permanent tissue. In permanent tissue there are also two types, that are simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissue. So as we see the different types of the meristematic tissues, and like that there are two types of the permanent tissues are present here, that are simple permanent tissues and complex permanent tissues. And again the simple permanent tissues are classified into three types, that are parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. And complex permanent tissues are classified into three types, xylem, phloem and productive tissues. So we can study these simple permanent tissues and the types of the simple permanent tissues now. Now we see another one type of the plant tissue, that is nothing but the permanent tissue. So now we know that what are the meristematic tissues, but we are going to study the second type of the plant tissues, that is nothing but the permanent tissue. Again these permanent tissues are classified into two types, that is a simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Again these simple permanent tissues are classified into three types, parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. So the simple permanent tissue, the word itself says the simple, because the tissues contains same types of the cells here. The simple permanent tissues has same types of the cells, and the complex permanent tissues has different types of the cells. Under that now we study one by one. The one of the simple permanent tissue I am considering here, the parenchyma. These parenchyma tissues composed of unspecialized living cells. These composed of unspecialized living cells with relatively thin cell walls. So you have to remember here, these composed of unspecialized, these are simple living things with a relatively thin cell wall. They have relatively thin cell wall. They see here the cells. The parenchyma cells are look like this. This is the structure of the parenchyma cells. So see here, they have the thin cell walls and they are loosely packaged such that they have the number of intercellular spaces. The intercellular spaces are present here. They are loosely arranged. Therefore, these are the intercellular spaces. So the parenchyma cells are composed of unspecialized living cells with the thin cell walls. They are loosely packaged so that the intercellular spaces are present here. So what is the main function of this parenchyma tissue? It is nothing but already we know that the cells have the intercellular spaces. Therefore these intercellular spaces are utilized to store the food. Therefore the main function of the parenchyma it stores the food and provides the support to the plants. And these tissues, the function of these tissues, they stores the food and provides the support to the plants. And second one type of the simple permanent tissue, that is nothing but the collenchyma. These composed of living elongated cells with irregularly thickened cell walls. So as we seen in the parenchyma cells, these are the unspecialized living cells with a very thin cell wall, isn't it? And they are loosely arranged. loosely arranged, but the collenchyma cells are composed of living elongated cells with irregularly thickened cell wall. See here, this is the structure of the collenchyma tissue. See the cells here, the cells have a thickened cell wall, and also there is a no intercellular space is present. They are closely attached, isn't it? So this composed of living elongated cells with irregular thickened cell walls at the corners, no intercellular space is present. So but sometimes these cells, the collenchyma cells, contain the chlorophyll and they performs the photosynthesis process. Sometimes these contains chlorophylls and performs the photosynthesis. Therefore these tissues are called as a collenchyma. Why this name is comes here? Because these collenchyma tissue has the cells, that cells has the cells sometimes it is has the chlorophyll. So therefore the name collenchyma come from this. The cells which are present in the collenchyma, they have the chlorophyll and sometimes they are going to perform the photosynthesis. Therefore these tissues are called as a collenchyma tissues. Now we are going to study another one type of the simple permanent tissue, that is nothing but the sclerenchyma tissue. See here, these sclerenchyma tissues are composed of long, narrow, thick walled cells, and the tissue is made up of dead cells. You have to remember here the first two types of the simple permanent tissue, that is the parenchyma and the collenchyma, they are made up of living cells, but the sclerenchyma, it is made up of the dead cells. It is composed of the dead cells. So it is composed of long, narrow, thick walled cells, and the cells, these tissues is made up of the dead cells. These are these are arranged very closely. There is no intercellular space is present. So these sclerenchyma tissues are made up of, are composed of long, narrow, thick walled cells and dead cells, and also they are closely arranged. Therefore there is no intercellular space is present. And these sclerenchyma tissues has dead cells and they are present in the husk of the coconut and in the jute. For example, these sclerenchyma tissues, the one question arises in your mind, in which part of the plant we are going to see the sclerenchyma tissue. See here, the outer part of the plant surface, it is somewhat rough, isn't it? It is somewhat rough. In that rough part we are going to see the sclerenchyma tissues. Why? Because the cells which are present at that rough part, they are dead, isn't it? So when you are going to see, when you are going to feel to touch that rough part, it is somewhat rough and we feel that they are dead. So therefore these dead cells are present, or the sclerenchyma tissues, they are present at that part. And another one example given here, the sclerenchyma tissues are present in the husk of the coconut fiber. At the upper part of the coconut, that is somewhat fibers are present. In that fiber the sclerenchyma tissues are present, and also they are present in the jute, etc. See, this is all about the simple permanent tissue. Now I am going to discuss the complex permanent tissue, another type of the permanent tissue, that is the complex permanent tissue. These complex permanent tissues are again classified into three types, that are xylem, phloem and protective tissues. Xylem, phloem and protective tissues. Now we can see xylem. See here, why it is called it as a complex permanent tissues. Why these are called it as a simple permanent tissue? It is very simple that these simple permanent tissues has a same type of the cells. These simple permanent tissues has a similar type of the cells, or the same type of the cells, but the complex permanent tissues has a different types of the cells. We can see here, first one example I am taking, the xylem. It is one of the type of the complex permanent tissue. The xylem, it is composed of 4 different types of the cells. Those are tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. As we know already, the complex permanent tissues are composed of different types of the cells. Therefore here we see the xylem, the tissue xylem, it is composed of 4 types of the different cells. Those are tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers. Then what is the function of the xylem here? What is the function of this tissue? These conducts the water and the mineral from the roots towards all part of the plant. These conducts the water and minerals from the roots to the different parts of the plant. So it is function of that xylem. And now we are going to see another one type of the complex permanent tissue, that is nothing but the phloem. The phloem tissue, it is also composed of different types of the cells. Those are sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. Once again I am repeating here, the phloem tissue, it is composed of 4 different types of the cells. Those are sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma and phloem fibers. And what is the function of the phloem tissue here? These conducts the food materials from the leaves to the different parts of the plants. As we know already, the food is produced in the leaves. In the photosynthesis process, the food is produced. So that food will be supplied towards all part of the plant with the help of the phloem tissues. The main function of the phloem tissue is this conducts the food materials from the leaves to the different parts of the plants. Now we can see the another one, last type of the complex permanent tissue, that are nothing but the protective tissues. So the term itself says these are the protective tissues. These are made up of a single layer of cells. These are made up of the single layer of cells. What is the main function of these tissues? It is nothing but they give the protection. They are present at the covering part of the plants, isn't it? The covering parts of the plant, which we are going to see, it is somewhat hard. In that part we are going to see these protective tissues. So why we are going to call it as the protective tissues? Because these are made up of these contains the epidermis of the leaf. They contains the epidermal cells at the protective part, and they bears the stomata. We are going to see the stomata in that epidermal cell. See here, if you are going to see the outer surface of the leaf or the outer surface of the plant stem, we can see the structures like this. These are all epidermal cells and this is the stomata. As we know already, the plants are going to use this stomata to throw away the waste products which are present in the plants, isn't it? But these epidermal cells are called it as a guard cells. Why? Because they protect some loss of some of the materials from the plant, like water, minerals. So that's why these are very hard. So that's why it is called it as a protective tissues here. The cells which are present at the protective tissues we are going to see somewhat hard here. Why? Because they protect the plant body from the loss of water or from the loss of the mineral. So, and these protective tissues contains the epidermal cells, and epidermal cells has the stomata. These stomatas are the main structures of the plants which they are going to utilize for the excretion of the substances, isn't it? Excretion of the waste materials. So this is all about the types of the tissues of the plants. That is, we studied about the different types of the tissues, that is meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Under the meristematic tissues we are going to study the different types of the meristematic tissues, that is apical meristematic tissues, lateral meristematic tissues, intercalary meristematic tissues, and under the permanent tissues we are going to study simple permanent tissues and the types of the simple permanent tissues, that is parenchyma, sclerenchyma, collenchyma, and we study under the permanent tissues, that is the complex permanent tissues, those are xylem, phloem and the protective tissues. So these are all the different types of the tissues. In the next session we are going to study the different types of the animal tissues, how the animal tissues are arranged and what are the works of that animal tissues. That will be studied in next session. Thank you.